Rashid is driving along a night highway with his pregnant wife and their young daughter when they suddenly hit some kind of animal. The man gets out to check what happened, after which they continue on their way. The girl is very upset by what has occurred. Her mother explains that the road is unlit, so poor animals periodically end up under the wheels. It is all God's will. The girl objects, saying that the death of an animal has nothing to do with God. The family has not even driven a couple of miles before the car breaks down. Rashid tries to do something, but the engine will not start. Since the nearest repair shop is far from there, Rashid asks a local resident, Omid, for help. The man happens to be a car mechanic. His brother Vahid is also there. He is on the phone at that moment, first talking to someone named Rahim, demanding that he return a van. Then Vahid receives a call from his mother and promises to come by soon, when Rashid's family comes in. The repair will take some time. While Omid is doing everything necessary, Vahid hears a creaking sound that seems very familiar to him. It is the creak of Rashid's prosthesis. Vahid wants to believe that he is mistaken, but this is definitely not a mistake. The realization of who is standing before him crashes down on him. The repair is successfully completed, and the family drives away. Vahid takes his motorcycle and follows them closely. The man's memories of the past are still very fresh, even though several years have passed, and all this time he has been thirsting for revenge. The family stops for the night at a hotel, unaware that someone is waiting for the right moment. In the morning, Vahid, overwhelmed by conflicting emotions, continues the pursuit in a van. Is there any chance that he has mistaken Rashid for someone else? Despite his doubts, taking advantage of the moment when the family stops, Vahid kidnaps Rashid in broad daylight, in the middle of a busy street. After that, the man takes his captive into the desert and digs a grave. Vahid intends to bury Rashid, whose eyes are blindfolded right now, knowing that the name listed on his identity document is fake. His real name is Ebel. The man begs his kidnapper not to do this, denying that the name Ebel means anything to him at all. But Vahid does not believe him, stating that this miserable life has not made him forget everything. Ebel used to blindfold Vahid and the other prisoners and seat them facing the wall so that they could not see him. What followed were inhumane tortures. It does not matter that Vahid never saw his tormentor's face, he would recognize the creak of that prosthesis among 1,000 other sounds. That horrific noise still rattles in his ears and haunted him for many years. Rashid insists that he lost his leg only last year, in an accident. Which means Vahid is mistaken. Rashid has proof, the scars on his leg are still fresh, and he actually has a doctor's appointment scheduled for today. Vahid is determined to carry out his revenge, but Rashid's words make him hesitate and stop. He checks the captive's scars, and they really do seem relatively fresh. The man is at a loss as to what to do next, while Rashid begs him to pull him out of the pit. He can no longer breathe. Not in a hurry to release the captive, Vahid decides to visit his old friend Salar and shows him the passport of their alleged former warden. They once served time together. Now Ebel, if it is indeed him, is in the trunk of Vahid's car, and the man needs Salar's help to identify the captive. Salar refuses to take part in this, unable to understand how Vahid could have been so reckless. Even if that man is Ebel, Salar advises his friend to let him go. They should not sink to the level of people like Ebel, who treat others worse than animals treat each other. But Vahid has nothing left to lose. Ebel took everything from him, his honor, his wife, his job, and now the time for retribution has come. Salar does not change his mind, he only gives Vahid a slip of paper with a phone number, telling him to call and do whatever the woman says. He calls without delay and then goes to the address. A wedding photographer named Shiva is the very woman he spoke to on the phone. She is busy with work, photographing newlyweds, so Vahid will have to wait if he wants to talk about anything. He explains that it is important and that he will not take much of her time. But the woman, very busy, insists that he wait until she finishes the photo session. At that moment the man states that he has found Ebel. This makes Shiva stop and freeze in shock. Vahid assures her that there is nothing to worry about, because Ebel is immobilized in his trunk. The man only needs at least one more person to identify the scoundrel. However, Shiva drives Vahid away, saying that Salar made a mistake by sending Vahid to her. She has returned to a normal life and will not allow anyone to ruin it. The man's words about how the warden ruined his life have no effect on her. But Vahid still does not leave, watching as Shiva returns to her clients. Only after Salar calls her and they talk for a while does the woman agree to help. Vahid leads Shiva to his van, asking her to remain silent so that if anything happens later, she will not be accused of being involved in the kidnapping. The woman looks into the trunk but cannot say for certain whether it is Ebel or not, because her eyes, like those of the other prisoners, were blindfolded as well. Shiva no longer wants to have anything to do with Vahid and demands that he leave immediately. The newlyweds, Ali and his bride Golrokh, intervene. As it turns out, the name Ebel is familiar to the woman as well. When Golrokh hears it, she suddenly feels physically ill, she can barely remain standing. After recovering a little, the bride demands to be allowed to see Ebel right now. Despite Shiva's attempts to stop her, Vahid opens the trunk and lets the newlyweds come closer. In the end, none of them can say for sure whether this man is Ebel. But Golrokh is not going anywhere until she knows for certain, because Ebel ruined her life. Shiva decides to look at the man once again. Perhaps some distinctive features will give him away. The woman comes to the conclusion that this man looks very much like Ebel, but that someone named Hamid could identify him for sure. Ali does not want his bride to be subjected to such stress, especially on the eve of the wedding, but there is nothing that could make Golrokh change her mind. Before they go to Hamid, Vahid demands that all of them hand over their phones. The drive is tense. Ali would have preferred to continue the photo session, but it seems that the upcoming wedding stopped mattering to the woman the moment she heard about Ebel. Shiva buys earplugs so that the captive will not hear them, as well as sleeping pills to put him to sleep. The woman knows that Hamid will throw a fit as soon as they drag him into this. At last they arrive. Shiva forces him to get into the car so that they can all go somewhere quiet and calmly sort everything out. Hamid does not understand what is going on at all. Shiva asks him to just shut up and be patient. The moment Hamid sees Ebel, he lunges at him. The others instantly grab the enraged man and pull him away from the sleeping captive. Hamid shouts that this is definitely Ebel. He tormented people like Hamid, because within the prison walls wardens have almost unlimited power, and the law does not apply there. Shiva and Vahid insist that none of them can do anything until the man himself admits that he is Ebel. But Hamid does not need proof, the prosthesis is more than enough for him. Vahid and Ali forcibly lead Hamid out of the van so that he can pull himself together. The commotion in the parking lot attracts the attention of security guards. Shiva tries to smooth things over, saying that it is just a wedding photo session. But the guards sense that something is wrong and plan to take a look inside the van. What were those suspicious thuds coming from there? Vahid does not allow the guards to look inside, assuring them that there is nothing to see. In the end, Ali gives them some money so that they finally leave them alone. Vahid realizes that he should not have involved the others in this and demands that they get out of the van. He will deal with it alone from here on. However, Hamid is not going anywhere until revenge is carried out. Ali, on the other hand, would gladly leave, believing that this is like a swamp. The farther you go, the deeper you get stuck in it. Golrokh refuses to leave with her fiancé, even if their own wedding is at stake. She has waited for this moment for so long. Now the captive must talk at any cost. The woman hopes to identify him that way. For the sake of his future wife, Ali is forced to stay. Shiva asks Vahid what he intends to do next. The man has no idea. Shiva says that he makes decisions too impulsively. First he acts, then he thinks. But at least it is good that afterward he does come to his senses. Their common problem is that there is no way to know 100% whether this is Ebel or not. Hamid suggests taking the man somewhere remote and beating a confession out of him by force. Shiva does not like this idea. If they resort to violence, how will they be any better than the warden who tortured them? But unlike her, there is not a single drop of pity in Hamid for those who tormented them. The car stalls, so everyone except the driver has to push it to the nearest gas station. Golrokh starts feeling nauseous, and the gas station attendant jokes that it looks like the newlyweds got ahead of themselves. While Vahid pays for the gas, Hamid asks Shiva why she trusts a man she has known for only one day. The woman replies that if Salar trusts Vahid, then she does too. But Hamid is convinced that Vahid is playing some kind of game of his own. Could he and Ebel be accomplices? Vahid feels a sharp pain in his back because of his kidney problems. While the others help him to his feet, Hamid takes advantage of this and tries to drive off in the van, but everyone rushes to block his way. Despite their disagreements, the group returns to the desert and waits for their captive to regain consciousness. Perhaps the dose of sleeping pills was too strong, and he will never wake up. Hamid loses patience, no longer able to remain idle. He does not care about Shiva's opinion, about Ali's opinion, who is acting like a moralist, or least of all about Vahid's opinion, who could turn them all in if they are caught. After all, they hardly know him at all. Golrokh shouts for him to stop. Ebel, if it really is him, must be conscious and clearly understand what awaits him. When Golrokh was released, the warden told her friends that she had cooperated, thereby making her life on the outside even worse than it had been in prison. Ali did not know much about the details of his fiancée's life, but as soon as she reveals what happened to her in prison and what Ebel did, his heart tightens. That is why the woman longs so much for revenge, but Hamid longs for it even more, unable to understand what all of them are waiting for. He is even ready to do everything alone, sparing the others the need to take this sin upon themselves. Yet for some reason, they all continue to hesitate. Shiva says that he is confusing one enforcer, a slave of the system, with the system itself. This only makes Hamid laugh. He will never believe that Ebel was a slave of the system. People like him are the ones who built that system. Besides, everything Shiva says is irrelevant to him. They were once a couple, but she left him because he had no money. The woman explains that it was not about money. Hamid did not have any, and never would. And Shiva understood that perfectly well. This argument could have gone on forever if the captive's phone had not rung. Vahid is bewildered at how he could have been so careless as not to take the man's phone during the kidnapping. Hamid advises against answering. It could be a police trap. After all, kidnapping an intelligence agent is no joke. Despite everything, Vahid answers. It is Rashid's crying daughter. Her mother has had a seizure in the kitchen. Vahid will never forgive himself if he does not help. It really could be a trap, but he is willing to take the risk. Everyone except Hamid agrees. The opinion of the majority carries more weight, so they head to Rashid's house. Vahid and Shiva go inside, introducing themselves to the girl as her father's friends. They urgently take the unconscious pregnant woman to the hospital. And although hospitalization requires documents and the mandatory presence of a close relative, the doctor decides to make an exception and take responsibility. The woman's water breaks, and she is taken to the operating room. Meanwhile, Vahid talks to the girl, trying to find out whether her parents have any relatives nearby. The girl replies that her father forbade her to call anyone except him if something happened. The woman gives birth to a healthy baby boy. Surprisingly, Vahid is even glad about this, believing that the child is not guilty of anything and should not be held responsible for his father's sins. Vahid also feels that he cannot abandon the girl. Hamid simply cannot believe what he is hearing, shouting that Ebel's son will be even worse than his father. They do not owe sympathy to a monster who took everything from them, nor do they owe help to his children. However, no one else agrees with this, and Hamid decides to leave, no longer intending to take part in this. Vahid believes that it would be best for all of them to go their separate ways now. He does not know what he will do, but from this point on it is only his problem and his responsibility. Golrokh has already let off steam and is ready to step back. Only Shiva stays, unwilling to leave Vahid alone in such a situation. Together they take the immobilized Ebel into the middle of nowhere and beat him, without ever being completely certain that it is really him. Now it no longer matters. Earlier, Shiva had insisted that she was against violence, so Vahid did not expect this from her. When the captive regains consciousness again, they are about to carry out their long-awaited revenge. The man continues to deny that he is who they believe him to be. But Vahid cannot be swayed by pity. He was an ordinary worker who, like all of them, was simply fighting for his rights. Vahid never wished harm on anyone, but Ebel made him just like himself. Vahid wants Ebel to know before he dies that he has a son whom he will never see. Suddenly the man reveals that he really is Ebel, but what does that change? Vahid is not a killer, otherwise he would have done it long ago and would not have taken his enemy's wife to the hospital. Ebel does not believe that he did anything wrong. He was a supporter of the regime and backed the supreme leader, and therefore considered it his duty to beat confessions out of protesters. Hearing this, Shiva takes out all her anger on Ebel, shouting that he and his regime ruined the country, leaving ordinary people with nothing. There is nothing that could justify the actions of people like Ebel. He only repeats that he is sorry and begs them to let him see his son. Vahid decides to spare this pitiful man and leaves him a knife so that he can cut the ropes binding him and make his way to the road. Vahid returns to his usual life, or at least tries to. In the final scene, we see him freeze when he hears the familiar creak of a prosthesis. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel not to miss more exciting new products. Also, the authors will be pleased if you leave your opinion in the comments.